we have made the Candy crew and the Meat crew both do a PowerPoint. I actually have not paid much attention to what they're doing at all, so I don't really know what we're in for, like whatsoever. Also, I'm kind of dying here. My bad.
Yeah,
So, feel like we don't really need that much preamble.
that's true. Okay,
And we just
so
let one of them take it away.
so we're gonna start with Lux, our beloved horse mod.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my wonderful presentation. I feel
So I
like,
will be grading you.
oh, well, that's like fine. I'm kind of used to that. I'm a PhD student, so I give a lot of presentations.
That's the wrong PowerPoint. It is
The
this one.
last one I did give, he did say I talk too fast and I move around my hands a lot, which is very distracting. I can't promise on the fast talking. Thankfully, none of you can see my hands. So, first slide.
Wait, hold on. I
Oh.
need to open up Elf Key. One moment.
Elf key.
I need to rebind my foot pedal.
Oh, fuck off.
I was like, elf key. Oh my god, is this a new type of creature? Hello.
I
Hello, everyone.
All
I
right.
just I saw those people sending.
Awesome. We should be good now.
Also, I'm turning off the chat while I'm speaking. So if you're all brutally murdering me for something,
will be keeping an eye on chat.
All right. And here we go.
here we go. Candy John. Oh, I was wait. Go back to my title slide. My beautiful title
Of
slide.
course.
Candy John. How did we get here? Little subtitle. John is talking about someone else here, but as I think often applies to John, the things he says about other people apply very directly to the self. First slide. So, I have at the start here, I want to look at two of his, like, not his marriage relationships. It's kind of like a microcosm of how he treats other people and how he interacts with them and, like, where this problem starts to come from. So one of the first conversations where John starts to, like, kind of freak out a little bit is where Dave goes up to John and is like, hey, I don't know what to do about the situation. And John, kind of a rare moment for him, is, like, pretty assertive. It's like, yo, I'm a Dave cat chipper to the core. This Jade stuff, I don't like it. I think it's a bad idea. And John, I think, does make some decent points, which is like, Card Cat probably can't cope with this. Like, it probably isn't like the most healthy. You can't maintain this situation. But then John kind of goes a little bit off the rails and he gives some very interesting advice. So let's see what he says. Next slide. Next slide. He tells Dave to flip a coin and heads or tails to decide who he marries. In my opinion here, this, and I think there's this comment he makes where he says, Dave Jade Cat is not canon sounding. I think combined here, this kind of like, I think torpedoes his interaction with Dave. It makes it like, it kind of takes all the things he said and makes it like, okay, well now you're kind of just being weird. So I think this is like a kind of example where it's like, and then we'll see how he interacts with this later. I want to also point again, this idea of canon, John is like, gets very, very, very into the idea of what is canon in Candy. And this is extremely important to him. He starts organizing his life around this. And as we'll see, I think this is how he ruins his life. Next slide. So this is one of the things that John is really fixated on throughout Candy. He continually talks to Shrez. He says, this is horrible. Jade's ruining their life. I think it's two separate conversations. He says Jade is ruining their life. But he never like tells this to Jade as it's happening. He kind of just like complains to Terezi about it. He does this a lot with a lot of his relationships. He does mention this to her eventually. This is after he tries to kidnap Jane's son without telling anyone, without much semblance of plan. Jade walks in and is like, yo, like, what are you doing? And he, among many other things, freaks out and says this time that he's ruining their life. And of course, it's not really a conducive way to giving someone advice on how they handle relationships. So it's, of course, ignored. So these are probably his two main contributions to like his attempts to stop Jade and Dave from getting together. Flip a coin over it, and I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. I would consider this a pretty bad failure. I think it's a little bit pathetic. Let's go to his next relationship. Jake. We all love Jake. You know, he's his dad. What a guy. Let's see. We don't all love Jake. I don't like Jake. I end of Candy, I like Jake a little bit more. Next slide. The Jake situation. John is like repeatedly, and this is I think a contrast to what happens with Dave and Jade, where it's like he's kind of just uncomfortable with what's happening there. He is scared for Jake. He says explicitly to other people that he is scared for Jake. But he doesn't like talk to him about this. And there's like I think one line I think is pretty revealing where he like starts assuming things about Jane and Jake's relationship. He assumes they have sex after Dirk died, which is not true. I think if he had like a conversation with Jake at any point, this probably would have been ironed out, which indicates to me that he did not talk with Jake about this, much like how he didn't talk with Jade about anything. And he just kind of assumed and complained to Terezi about it a lot. I think it's another, I talked about this previously, where John just like kind of, he gets upset a little bit, but he doesn't take these things seriously. Like he's talking to Terezi and he talks about Gamzee like grabbing Jake's butt, which is like a pretty like kind of like horrific violation of consent, especially if he thinks Jake is in an abusive relationship he doesn't want to be in. So it's a very weird thing to be like, oh, like this little fun, it's just a little funny thing to tell Terezi. Again, like he just doesn't take these things kind of seriously. Sorry, look at the chat. When I think he probably should, and this is also I think part of the problem, which is that he like is upset by these things a little bit and like uncomfortable, but he doesn't take the step to like do something about it. Next slide. Okay, but look, John will take a step to do something about it sometimes. John's master plan, he says he spent multiple years on this, is to walk into Jane's house, grab her son from one of the most fortified places in this planet, and just kind of walk out and assume there's going to be no consequences after. While he's doing this, two people tell him, this is a bad idea. This will not work. It doesn't work. He didn't, you know, this was probably something he could have figured out if he talked to like Jade, who's a genius, any of his friends, his wife. But no, again, John doesn't communicate with people. And I think this also gets to another core part of like, I think why John is the way he is, which is it's a very 13-year-old mindset. He believes that everything will work out like around as much. Like he is the same, you know, he's still in the game. It's not like he's in real life. So like, yeah, if I come with like a cool plan, I spend a lot of time on it, it'll work. And it doesn't. Next slide. So now we've given you a little bit of some side overview of how this is going to go. Now we have the kind of the meat and potatoes of John's life. His wonderful marriage to his beautiful wife. Next slide. So kind of just like entering into this, John's like pretty apprehensive and unsure. And I think at the end of the conversation where he talks about getting married, I think he is like selling himself, but it really seems to me this is something he jumped into mostly because he's not really sure of the implications. He wants to like try to get a little bit older. And the best way he thinks to do it is, you know, screw it. Let's get married. Why not? My opinion here, you know, I think, I don't want to say like, oh, you know, we have to respect the institution of marriage. But I do think the type of situation he's getting into, which is a very traditional marriage, is like very restrictive. You probably want to be very sure that like that's what you want to do before you get married. John doesn't really do this. He kind of just jumps in. Like Roxy says, it's kind of like a offhand, like half jokey thing, which is something they often do. And John's like goes in on it. Next slide. So in Candy 17, there's this, I think, like pretty key breaking point. I talked about it a little bit earlier where John like is starting thinking about canon. I think this is the second point where John starts to like really lose it. And before this, I'll talk about this on the next slide a little bit, but he's already like kind of struggling with dealing with the fact that his friends aren't how he remembers them, and like people are different, and like Roxy is like they're just like not acting the way that he thinks they should act. But the really I think breaking point Mr. President put me onto this. Rose is just lying here. When Rose says she doesn't understand, like, and she thinks she's just lying. She wants all this to be over. She doesn't want to worry about it. I think she's probably on some level aware of how paradox space works and that she can't do anything anymore, and so it's not her problem. But this, I think, is probably like the biggest John disaster arc that is not John's fault. So we'll give it to John. I think this does make him go a little bit off the rails a lot faster because it feeds into his complex that he's the only person that knows what's going on. And it also allows him to continue operating under this like strange and warped idea of canon. So he's like freaked out. And I'm just going to note this here and I'll talk about it more later. Instead of talking to his wife about this, you know, the person he's like vowed to live the rest of his life with, he calls Terezi up on the phone. Texts Terezi up on the phone, I guess, not calls, but same difference. Probably not a good sign. The baby isn't even born yet. Next slide. So yeah, I talk about this as a case study. I just think this is like really sick. I think it's like relatively easy to figure out what Roxy is doing here. John is like having like a ton of premarital jitters. He's like, he knows he's freaking out even. And so Roxy's like, let's not like lose our minds over the baby name. This is like not that important and it's a fine enough name. And John like holds on to this for like half a decade, I think. Honestly, the whole time. You can see references to this moment like way later. This is the part where he goes like, Roxy is like a psi zombie. Like Roxy just all they do is agree with me. All they do is agree with me. And IMO. I think that's pretty twisted. I think probably don't treat who you view as women like that. Portrays things about the way he thinks that like if she's agreeing with him, then it's like fitting into like a traditional role and like actually they're not human anymore. And I don't think that's true. Next slide. And then there's the second part, which I also think is like just very, very, very strange, where John starts like Terezi, I think I'm the only sane person left in the universe. And he specifically says that people should not care about what to name a baby or who's stuck in a terrible relationship with who. What I think is interesting about this is these are things that John continues to tell Terezi about. Like these are things that he cares about and is upset by. And I think this is kind of like a projection where like John is like looking at his inability to impact these things. And like maybe what he really wanted was he didn't like the name that much. And like maybe what he truly wanted was like, you know, Roxy to pick a name and then like that would be better than what he picks because I think he has some self-esteem issues. But instead, since he didn't get what he wanted, he like takes it on everyone else. So they're fake. They're not giving me what I want. So they're not real. And again, I just like, wow, like introspect a little. Next slide. The crux of the issue. So like, I think I'm going to keep on going a little bit after this, but I think this is a core portion of his psyche. Next slide. John really, really struggles to understand why his friends are changing. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. If you remember from the prologue, he locked himself in his room for the better part of until he was 23. So he hasn't really been talking to these people. So it's like, for him, it's like if you basically like, I don't know, 16, right? Before you graduated high school, you just stop talking to your friends and you see them again after you graduate college. Yeah, they change. But for John, he thinks everyone should be like how they were from like 13 and 16. And I think this is like a normal kind of complex to have. The strange thing here is that John, and next slide. John takes this and he gets mad at them. He starts declaring they're fake, and starts cutting people out of his life. He like, especially this very strange portion with Jane where he's like, you're not like my grandmother. You're like some weird, twisted version. So the universe is wrong because you're not exactly like my grandmother. Which is just very strange. Like not to say Jane was like good, but like she's like a human being who like came to decisions due to her thoughts and actions. And he could have maybe even like done something about that at some point. But again, this is like a coping mechanism because John finds it like really hard and difficult to do things. Yes, he did meet two nanosprites. Yeah, but I think they're both pretty similar. Both nanosprites. Next slide.
Nope.
What? Oh, did we skip one?
Yeah, I skipped one.
Yeah, sorry. How to get divorced? Emotional cheating. So I think, look, I don't want to get too big into where does the emotional cheating line thing start? But IMO, when you're aware you're doing it and you start like hiding, you start sneaking around and you start texting her and going, I'm so selfish, I'm stupid, 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 stupid. I think that's emotional cheating. You know what you're doing. And especially like, oh, like I'm at my son's birthday. I'm gonna go text Terezi. My wife is like in the hospital for a pregnancy. I'm gonna go text Terezi. Oh, my son is like listening to a sex cult leader. I think this is bad. I think this is like corrupting my son's mind. But like, I gotta text Terezi. I don't know. His father. It's a big deal. I think I should just text Terezi. Um, and for pretty much all of John's issues, which he probably should have been discussing with like the people in his life or his wife or the actual people concerned, he like immediately jumps to this escapism where he goes to text Terezi instead of dealing with it. And this is, I think, a parallel, like the relationship parallel to his everything is fake, which is this is his complex. He wants everything to be when he's 13. And he knew Terezi when he was 13. And that's what he wants to retreat back to instead of actually dealing with the problems as they grow up. Next slide. How to get divorced? Don't communicate. There's like multiple points in the text where you can see he just doesn't communicate with Roxy. He's like pretty like visibly uncomfortable in his head with how he's thinking. Like he knows he doesn't like the idea of doing this funeral for Teen Jade. I think he probably thinks it's a bit of a mockery. But instead of like really pushing the issue, he just goes like, I love the idea. It's a great idea, but you're so pregnant. And of course, like it's Roxy's body. So of course they're just gonna be like, I think I can do it. It's fine. And so they do it. They do this thing he doesn't want to do, and he kind of starts to resent them for this instead of like just saying, I don't want to do this. And it's a similar thing with Jane. There's a point where it comes up in a conversation, and John's like, let's just not talk about it. Let's just not talk about it. And then later he's like, my evil wife supports the fascists. And it's like, well, John, you didn't talk to them about it ever. And then same thing with the plan with Tavros. I mean, like, he says explicitly he doesn't want to be talked out of it. And it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe someone should have talked you out of it, John. Maybe, like, if you had spoken to someone, they could have been like, hey, I think we need, like, an actual plan. Next slide. Candy 23. We have a second breaking point. This is the failed kidnapping attempt. Again, he just like hasn't been dealing with his issues with Roxy. It's very bizarre, this thing where the same feeling that makes him do subtle things against his wife's placid demeanor. Like, I really do think this is like some pretty like deep core misogyny, because Roxy is like chill, but they aren't placid. Like, we see that like they push back when people like talk bad about Jane, which is probably not good. It's not a good position to hold, but it is a position that disagrees with John. But John can't deal with this. John has slotted Roxy in as like a Psy zombie that's pretending to be the perfect wife. And he just does not want to deal with it. And he doesn't actually want to have these difficult conversations because they're hard. He wants to think about how everyone else is fake and he doesn't have to do anything anymore. This is like kind of the end of their marriage. Roxy still cares a lot about Jane, which again, John knows this, but he doesn't like factor it in. Because again, he's not really thinking about these things. Next slide. So yeah, I talked about this earlier, but I think John uses fakeness as a way out. And we can see this in Meat even. And yeah, I know it's a candy presentation, but they're still the same kind of person. In Meat, he is separating himself from the children he's dealing with. And he's been doing this the whole time ever since he got his retcon powers, where he's focused on the versions of these people that exist in like a quote unquote alpha context. And Candy is him losing his connection to that. But he had been using this complex the whole time. So when these children die, he just kind of gets over it. It's not really a big deal. It's not really beating him up. He immediately just goes to talk to Terezi because of course Terezi is real. I think there's like kind of a giveaway here, and I'll talk about the scene a little bit later too. John, when Jake comes to John after leaving Jane, John goes, it's not your fault that you ruined the bond with your son because of existential reasons. And I think this is clearly John talking about himself. It's because immediately after, John is like, he remembers that Jake has like way more reasons to like say that it's not Jake's fault. Like John is the one who was only done this for existential reasons. Jake is like in an abusive relationship and like has a lot going on, and like yeah, he is like responsible, and we'll talk about this later too. But at the same time, like it's about you, man. Come on. Next slide. Grounding moment. I just was like, I just wanted us all to think about this. How bizarre it is. He's almost 30 years old. I think he might be 30 in this one, or he's almost there. And he's staring, looking around, saying, "Everyone is fake. Fakety, fakety, fake." It's like, again, it's just like a desire to not interject. It's itself. And next slide. And I guess this is like my aside here. Like I don't want to say it's like John is like a bad person for being depressed or like having gender dysphoria. I don't think he is like that's what makes the issue here. The issue is that John like doesn't try and like at all over a decade, right? He's 23. You could really say he didn't do anything like since pre-prologue, but let's keep it post-prologue. John like has a wife, he has people that care about him, he's rich. He doesn't have a job. So at any point, John could do something. And like there are points where he's lucid. There's points where like he's pretty active, right? He's able to plan this whole thing with Tavros, right? It's stupid, but like it doesn't do anything, but like that's still taking an action. And he could have over the course of 10 years taken action to like see his son or get therapy or like do anything. And it just doesn't happen. Next slide. Okay, so is this all a front? I think like it probably there's an internal debate here, and I'm still sometimes go on this, but there's a question of is John like actually believing all this stuff on what level? And I think John believes this stuff a lot less than he wants to believe it. I think example this is the wedding chapter where he kind of like lets all this facade down. Where he said, he's looking at Dave and Jane, he's like, wow, they're so happy together. And like he's like kind of beating himself up over being a bad husband. And he's like crying over not being able to see his son. It's like, well, clearly these people aren't fake because you like care about them. And like this, I guess another point where I got to earlier where he like knows he's like taking an active choice to keep on coping. And also again, he continues to insult Roxy. I'll talk about this later for not stopping Jane, which is also like he doesn't do anything. He has never done anything to stop humanofascism. It's not like a thing he cares about. Besides like talking about it. Next slide. Continues. Yeah, like in Candy 31, it's the same thing. He's like, everything's my fault because I didn't kill Lord English. But like again, he cares. And it's like, I think the really obvious example of this is when Terezi is gone, he starts shifting her from like the only real person, the light of my life, to person I don't have to care about. And he's talking to Frisk and he's super dismissive. He's like, I really thought Terezi just found you out there, but like maybe it doesn't even matter. It's not canon, so I don't actually have to care or be sad about it. And this is like, again, it's active justification. It's not just passive. Next slide. Sorry, one more. John cries. Oh, you don't have to skip it. This is just for this. John is crying. He is hugging his son. I don't think you would start hugging your son and it's crying, I'm sorry about what happened with you and your mother, if like you didn't care and you thought they were all fake all the time. He's like aware. This is again, he knows on an emotional level and like some level, an intellectual level. And we just see him when he's at like the points where he's like locking in and being like, I need to think everyone's fake so I don't have to deal with my wife. Next slide. Okay, John and fascism. Since Candy 22, which is like earlier than even some other characters, John is like aware that trolls are losing rights. He thinks this is bad. He consistently tells Terezi Jane is genocidal. You'll notice this happens a lot of times I mentioned earlier. John loves to tell Terezi about all the things that are going wrong in Candy. John does not like to do anything about those problems. And in the weddings chapter, Karkat's like, hey, could you please do something to help the resistance? could you please like do anything? It'd be so helpful. And he's like, you know, I just such a fuck up. I'm just so stupid. Instead of like helping anyone, I have to sit in my apartment and stare at the wall. Like you're talking to the leader of the revolutionary government who is like coordinated, like, I don't know. At this point, they have like warships, right? And you're like, no, actually, Karkat, I know better than you. I'm smarter than you. I don't have to do anything. And I think again, it's just like one of those things where it's like, it's really pathetic. Like I don't know, do something. Like you could offer to like move boxes. Like you're a god. You're like one of the most powerful beings on earth, and like this is how you choose to spend your time. Next slide. Catharsis. Let's wrap everything up. Let's see, you know, I think at the end of Candy, things get a little bit better. We do see John kind of comes to terms with some of these, and let's see how he comes to terms with it and discuss how this process occurs. Next slide. So I think one of the big things that we see in this chapter is just like, I talked about this earlier, but it's made really explicit here. John talks to Rose, and Rose is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know like where you got this idea. I don't understand like why you think this. And I think this again gets to it, which is John had like taken this idea of canonicity, and used this as like a sorry, I forgot to fix it. In Source is just the chapter where Roxy and John have the conversation where he calls her again. But yeah, he takes this and he uses this to justify himself. And I think this also is like a metatextual thing. Someone mentioned this where it's like John kind of does represent like the reader who stopped Homestuck when they're 16 and doesn't like that things change. And so his idea of canon is exactly his idea of how things were and how their lives are developed with no alterations at all. And every time someone like makes a decision in their life that's different than how it seemed like things were going to go at 16, that to him is not canon. And I mean, this is just inaccurate, right? It's also, again, it's just a very sick way to think about the people you know in real life. Next slide. Jake. Congratulations, Jake English. You did it. I think it was extremely brave that Jake English left his abusive wife. I think that takes a lot of difficulty, a lot of like heart. It's a really, really hard thing to do. And I have a lot of respect for him for doing it. John proceeds to laugh at him for this, like in his face. And he says the same thing, which I talked about earlier, where John says, I tried to help you for years. And again, maybe this happened off screen, but I don't think so. I think John complained to people in private for years and did basically nothing. Especially like, again, we saw like how his interaction with the resistance, which is another thing he complained about for years, and he didn't do anything. There's another just like bizarre scene where Jake is pouring his heart out, and John is, I think, at like peak, like dissociative, like peak, like, I don't care anymore. He's wallowing in this, and he goes, you know, really, Jake, my father is like a sim in a pool. I really, like, who cares if he lives or dies? I'll just like leave him here, like without pants on. I should probably, he looks cold, but like, do I really have to help him? It seems like a lot right now. And I think this is a really important moment because this happens after he has that conversation with Rose, where Rose, which is again, one of his like core ideas was he was saying, this is all justified because of what Rose said to me like 10 years ago. And Rose goes, no, that's not true at all. And he keeps on doing this, which I think is again, I guess I didn't say this originally, but one of the core things I'm arguing about is that, is John like tapping into some higher idea of canonicity? And no, he's not. This is cope. This is cope. This is his way of letting him do what he wants. And what he wants is to not deal with his problems. Next slide. More good job, Jake. Jake is, I think, it's very interesting because I think Jake's situation is very reflective of John's. Except for Jake is actually dealing with, I mean, he's dealing with some internal stuff. He's dealing with like, you know, feelings of control after breaking up with Dirk. The fact that Jake has never been like a very independent person. But John is dealing with just like stuff in his head completely. Like for Jake, there is the world government, like fascist government. There is like his wife like really might kill him. It is interesting, I think, that through seeing this, John goes, oh my God, like if this guy was it way worse and get out of it, like I guess it is kind of pathetic and horrible that I've been wallowing in this for 10 years and not calling my son because it's easier to do nothing than do something. I just want to say though, I do think and I talk about this again later, but I do think John is like responsible for his actions. Same way like Jake is definitely responsible for the fact that like he did have someone do a silly dance or be sent to a gulag on live TV. That was like a thing he did, and like he has to, I guess, come to terms with that. And like, well, yeah, I'll talk about it later, but it's one of those things where it is just important to remember where it's difficult, it's messy because he's a human being, and there's no like to actually redeem yourself. In part involves like acknowledging the things you did and continuing to move forward and like accept the fact that there's nothing you can do about it, and you just have to be better. Next slide. Yeah, I was gonna say they do just say this in the text where I really like the scene where John is like, "Hey, I think my wife's fake. I think no, it's real," and Jake is just like kind of disgusted. Like Jake's like, "What is like wrong with you?" I think about this a lot because I do think this is like the construction of the epilogue, especially if you read Meet first, primes you to kind of agree with John's position at first, and I think it's this a very fun scene because Jake is like kind of how I feel, where I'm like, this is crazy. This is like this is one of the worst things I've ever heard anyone say. Oh my god. Next slide. So I'm not going to go over the whole conversation, but I guess you just have to trust me on this. I think Roxy like pretty coherently explains every single action that like the reader and John was wondering like, why did Roxy do this? Is Roxy being mind controlled? And it's like, no. Roxy was just like, I want to raise my kid. Like, I don't really want to deal with all this stuff. Like, which is like, I think a pretty normal human reaction. I don't know if it's good. I can't tell you if it's good for a god to do this, right? But like, if you look around the United States, you will probably find, and not to get too political, but you'll find a lot of people who just like don't care, right? They have kids, they have their life, they're working on raising their kids, and that's it. They don't want to deal with all this stuff. But instead of like kind of understanding again that she's a human being with like thoughts and feelings and reasoning, John like doesn't. And I think this is kind of just like again, it's beautiful, right? It's like he could have had this conversation at any point. He could have had this conversation after that scene with Baby Vriska, where it said, or instead of texting Terezi, John was like, "Hey, I just feel like I'm having a really like awful time, and I feel like everyone's fake, and I feel like maybe I'm having like a deep person." No, nothing. Doesn't do it. And next slide. So yeah, this was just a YouTube comment. I saw it like pretty soon after the epilogues. I obviously blocked it out for it's someone's personal information, but I just thought it was interesting. I did think about this as I go, wow, this is kind of what Roxy has to think about with John Egbert, where it's the story here is someone commented on this random YouTube video and they're like, this guy got me pregnant and he said like, oh, we're gonna do all these big things together, and he had a gambling addiction, he lost all the money, and so could you please pray for me? And the person replies, I will pray for you, but the most important thing for you and your child is to forgive him. Blessings to you. And I was thinking about this because it's like, it's so tough because like Roxy, I mean, I do think, right, it is better for Henry Anderson to have a father in his life, but also like, you know, John did leave for 10 years basically because he just didn't feel like it. And it's like one of the hardest decisions you have to make as a mother, which is to like put over like how despicable and like kind of horrible this man was to you, because it is probably still better for your child for him to be around. And like, I guess I just have to say it's like, you know, and there's times where it's impossible. But it's hard. It's very hard. It's like I think it's difficult. I think Roxy is like very, very strong for doing that. Next slide. John, that's the end of our John section. For the ensuing sections, I have a good friend of mine who I'll say on the slide. Not good friend. Chill. We're chill. Made
Oh,
some slides.
damn. Okay.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean it like that. It's just I don't want to overstate my relationship with people. I feel like that's twisted. I'm like, oh, we're best friends. It's like, no, like they're cool. Like we talk in the candy chat. I like their posts. They're good posts. It's like, oh god, I talk about. But yeah. Next slide. Look, he talked for 10 hours, and you start losing it. So with Gardner's Corner, we have some thoughts with Gardner. I think these slides are very cool. They're a lot more pretty than my slides. I have the slides that an academic makes, which is I have no figures, so it's all text. These are pretty. Next slide. Meet. These are some random takes from the crowd on Meet, and we'll discuss them. Next slide. So this was basically just talking about how the Lord English fight. And I think I agree with this, which is it's like this very interesting dynamic where you expect these fights to be like very epic and exciting, and it really does feel like sickening. Like it is like you've kind of hyped up this final fight with Lord and you come and see it, and it's like, oh, like these are children risking their life to die. Um, and I guess I don't have a lot to say about this besides I really liked how the epilogues treated this. I think it's very fun, especially the way that the epilogues treats a lot of these relationships and things more seriously. And I think it does tie into John's arc a little bit, where John, I think, was expecting this kind of fun, exciting fight, and he gets into it, and it's like, oh, this is not fun. This is not exciting. This is fighting for my life, or I'll die. Next slide. Color theory. This is just a bit post. Dirk does not like John and Vriska because they are blue and he is orange and they're opposite. I will actually discuss why I think they don't like John and Vriska though, which is that I think in John's case, and I have to admit, look, I've been on record as the #1 Dork Strider defender. I get it. I don't like the fact that John has like all this power and he's kind of just low agency and he just doesn't want to do anything with it. So I guess like I kind of agree, and I think he does hate blue people. As far as Vriska, it's I guess the opposite situation where I think he doesn't like the fact that Vriska is like he feels like Vriska is like reaching a buffer station. And he hates this, especially because I think he sees that she screws up. And I think to some degree it's like, yeah, I do. I think I dislike Vriska for kind of similar reasons, which is the tempting and stealing the spotlight, but also like, you know, I don't know. It's hard. Because I do sometimes think Vriska's just a kid, you know? But then other times it's like, well, she did kill a lot of people. She did a lot of people. And like that's probably inexcusable. Next slide. Oh yeah, I talked about this enough earlier, but yeah, this is a kind of interesting theory about like if growing up on Earthsea, that kind of made them like more biased towards trolls. I think my opinion on this is I think it was more that for Roxy, she's like very, very invested in her child and not dealing with political information. For Jane, I think it has a lot to do with just she's like an ardent capitalist and she's a politician, and Jane starts with a bigoted position that she has taken on for purposes of furthering her political career, and in Candy we see that she expands out from that position because she needs to justify it to herself, and that causes things to blow out of control. And I guess you could say like would and I guess there was a conversation about this, like would Jane have done this if Dirk hadn't been like go sign up, like go do this? And I feel like probably, I don't know if she would have run for president, but Jane like already was running companies. I think she probably is just the kind of person who wants to get into politics. Like this was how she was raised. This was how her whole childhood was based around like you need to do, you know, capitalism. You need to take over the company. This was, and I think that's probably the bigger aspect of how she was raised and how this influences it, is just she was groomed for leadership. Next slide. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is talking about Dirk's uncomfortability with writing like I can say sex. It's 30. You can say the word sex. Sex scenes. And I don't know how to feel about this because I think it's kind of both, which is Dirk, I think on some level does believe that this is voyeuristic, but I also think Dirk is like viscerally kind of uncomfortable with it. And I guess it kind of makes sense to me. Like I think it's probably like really uncomfortable, right, to write that kind of scene about people you know. And I guess the difference between him and Calliope, yeah, is that for Calliope, this is like people she doesn't really know, that's like kind of abstracted. And for Dirk, this is like his friends and his family. And like, yeah, I think probably if I had to write like a scene like that with my brother, I'd feel sick. I'd feel really weird. I'd feel even weirder watching it. To the 40 minutes poster. I'm almost done. Or only a few more. Next slide. This is from the president. Hello, Mr. President. I think I do like this observation, which is that like Dirk has like he's a lot nicer to men than he is sorry, a lot nicer to women than he. Okay, if someone misspelled the name, actually, I didn't make this. I'm kidding. I could have fixed it. I think he is a little bit. I think it's less direct aggression. I think Dirk is paternalistic to women, is how I would put it. Where for men, he thinks they need to be like molded into something like that's powerful and aggressive and like is able to carry out action. And for women, he's like, like I don't think you need to do a lot. Like he doesn't seem to really. I think like part of it is with his interaction with Jane, where he's like, he doesn't seem to like really take the idea that like Jane is doing this like super seriously. It feels like he's kind of just like handing Jane like a toy, which is it's a different aspect of misogyny. It is also very interesting, right? The way that he feminizes Karkat specifically because he wants Karkat to not be president. He wants him just to be like a housewife, which I guess is another type of toy. Next slide. Candy. These are our candy ones. Next slide. Why didn't Earth B. Jane inherit Quackercorp? This is kind of a fun little thing that someone pointed out. Which is just that Jane is like super analytical. So maybe in Earth B, the reason that Jane didn't take over Quackercorp is that she's just not good at business. She'd kind of just like spend all the money on R&D and like not want to do it. And Jake is like, Jake's, kind of John is like maybe a little bit more business focused, especially if he gets like groomed for it. I don't know. Next slide. What's the through line of this presentation? The first part was all one topic. The second part is something that someone else made, and in my infinite grace and wisdom, they couldn't be here, but I'm going to read it and discuss it anyway. So it's 2 presentations. Thank you for your inquiry. There's only like 2 more slides. On the Gimsey Friska scene. Garden thought this was like probably one of the worst scenes. It definitely made me uncomfortable, but I kind of like it, which in the sense that like it's kind of showing the way that like all Callie is like completely unattached to like our relationship with the characters. She just like lets stuff happen. And I think this is the kind of thing where Dirk would like feel kind of sick. Like I think he would do something. And I think this kind of shows us the difference in the two of them. Especially I can't imagine he would like write this. Especially involving Jake. Do you think he wouldn't? I mean, you can, Mr. President, you can.
No, I mean we're coming up on like a lot of time here.
Yeah, I only have 2 more slides.
Okay.
This is fair.
Yeah.
You can shoot me to death. Next
I'd
slide.
say just run through them.
Skip this one. I forgot to delete it. Skip this one. Skip this one. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go really quick. I think there is something interesting about the way that Friska in the epilogues becomes the thing that she hates the most about parentheses Friska. I love parentheses Friska. I think it's one of the saddest things about Friska's character, where Friska, when she's happy, like finally happy, she's abstracted herself from the narrative, and that allows someone else to come in and steal it from her. And I think it's the same thing here, where like finally, again, she's become parentheses Friska. She's learning to abstract herself from the narrative, and someone else is coming in to be like, that's kind of like, you're kind of a loser, like you kind of suck. And I think it's a little bit less sad because it's like actually a different person. It's a lot more sad when it's like actually just you who really actually could know better. Next slide. Please be done. Please be done. Oh yeah. Okay. I think this is the last one. I think it's the second last one. Dirk Obama. This was a theory that I like. Again, I don't super subscribe to this. I feel like probably Obama was given information from Dirk in some way. Like they had a dalliance in the past. I feel like Dirk probably didn't come in and like screw with Obama's mainframe. That would be my guess. Though I don't know what Hope Powers do. But so maybe it is impossible for Hope Powers. It is one of those things where it is kind of crazy that I have to go quickly, but it is kind of crazy that like he uses Hope Powers to allow Dave to kill himself. That is, I like the way that Homestuck plays with aspects and the words they mean, where it is like that is his hope. He wanted to escape, but different kind of escape. Next slide. Please go. Please. We can end it here. I'm so tired.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will end this one out.
All right, queue up the next one.
Yep, it is coming up in just a moment as I make it its own thing.
Nodding.
Pop right over here. Share my screen for you. Thank you for your service, Lux. Back to the audience. We get
Fucking
you.
killed her.
Oh, hi.
We get. Where are the rest of you? Let's see. The rest of the people who need to speak. Okay, you. Invite to speak. And where are the other two people?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You're good.
Okay, good.
You need to speak.
We have one person that
And-
wants to come in for one slide.
Yeah, we are. You want in for one slide. And who was the very last person who was trying to speak? It was you. It was you. And it was. Come on, you. All right. Got them all.
Are you ready?
Oh, I was drowning in that ocean
Oh,
of
you guys
audience.
are gonna love our presentation.
I
Hell
feel
yeah.
like this is
Is
very
everyone ready?
me versus candy
Oh,
coded,
yeah.
I fear.
All right.
Without further ado,
A 3,
First
a 2, a 1.
You
Alright,
are
let's
not
get
ready
started.
for our presentation.
now, first off, we have a warning for eye strain. This is just precautionary, but let us discuss. What is this PowerPoint about? Please click. This is Obama and Homestuck, a primer by the Candylicious crew. Click one more time, please. And this is Night of Time approved, so that's how you know we are legit in our sources, and everything we say here is factual. Isn't that right, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely.
I toiled theorizing for this, doing research night and
All right, next
day.
slide, please.
We commune with the forces of the universe to make this.
Now then, abstraction. Is a man
Can you like
to a
click
god.
further through it? Sorry, as well. Sorry.
What is a man to a god? What is a god to an ultimate self? What are any of these to the 44th president of the United States of America? This is the question we ask today, and the one that we're going to answer as well. Please click forward. What does it mean to be a person? The most relevant example of this theme in the epilogues is, of course, the ultimate self, the one described by Dirk. He says that in the transition to ultimate self, some individuality has to be lost as all the possibilities are merged into one whole. The transition from the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, into... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Into... Sorry. The translation of the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, into Obama the Homestuck character is an excellent narrative parallel to this, since a real human is inherently more complicated and contradictory than we have ever seen in the most nuanced of characters. But as we ascend through the layers from human to character to God to ultimate self, the pinnacle of character, his humanity is lost, his traits are flattened. Eventually, Obama has gone from a man to a character to the abstract ideal of hope. Please click forward. One more time,
Okay.
please. Now, let's discuss Obama the man versus Obama the idea. Obama is this guy. Please click forward. Just once. Wow, that's Obama! In case you didn't know, in case you weren't aware. Every good boy and girl knows Obama is cool as fuck. They know this because if they don't, they will not be on the good Christmas list that I fucking forgot the name of. It's been slipping my mind. It's been a long day. If we could click forward one more time, just so we can get to the next slide. Ah, fuck, damn it, Obama's gone. We lost him. Guys, can we find him, please?
Bring him back.
Next.
Here, we are going to clarify that this is completely unironic. We are being so for real when we talk about this. Click next. So, in the beginning of Obama in Homestuck, we need to talk about Obama as a muse. From the beginning, he is a figure of deep inspiration for Dave. We see his first appearance in the comic when he inspires a lyrical piece for Dave called Obama Made It So That No One Gives a Shit About Black Presidents in Movies Anymore. And while he is not the figure of inspiration and idealist optimism that he would eventually become, a mythical savior that he would become for Dave, we can still identify the seeds for this future evolution. The transformation of fantasy to reality is a prominent theme because Obama represents the power of the black president. That idea that is only in movies, that is like, wow, this guy is such a like breaking such paradigms by making a fictional black president. But now it's a real president, and he's black, and that is the transformation of fantasy to reality. That is the essence of the hope aspect. So obviously, Dave would be able to identify this and relate to the hope aspect through Obama. And also, this piece tells us about Dave, and his understanding about the world is shaped by the friendship with John, because here he says that because of his conversations with John, they only talk about movies, and Dave only thinks about movies. He thinks about politics through movies. And yeah, that is also a very important facet because Obama becomes fictionalized in Dave's mind. Next. Next, one more. Obama the meme. Now, Obama becomes kind of a meme for Dave. As time goes on, he becomes a figure in his ramblings, and he thinks of him uh, like a fictional character, like you can have headcanons about, and that you think, oh my God, he would be so cool if he would come here and rap, and basically it's kind of a meme. It's kind of jokey, but Dave, I think his arc is about kind of losing this facade of irony of oh I'm just doing this because it's funny or because it's a joke. No, Dave is actually a very earnest person, and that's the secret about Dave. His obsession with Obama is very deep and very sincere. Next. So in the epilogues, because this is about the epilogues, um, we're bringing it back around to his clear obsession with Obama. With all of this background, now we can understand that Obama symbolizes hope for Dave, and he also symbolizes a potential future of his Earth that never came to pass. And I think the more Dave became distant from his dead Earth, from the Earth that was destroyed, the more that Obama became an idea and less a person. And I think that that came to the point that he became very symbolic of hope, freedom, equality, and that inspired him to get Karkat to run for president. For Dave, Karkat is troll Obama. Next. To Dave, he says something very interesting. I didn't get the screenshot, but you'll have to take my word for it. He says that Earth B is basically like fake and stupid and not real and unrealistic. And I think this is odd because it happened. It actually happened, and it's probably not the weirdest thing that Dave would be able to see. And yet, he's right. He's right that Earth B is not real because the events of it are more fictionalized than the events of his own Earth. when we talk about the real Earth that we live in. But Dave is able to kind of suss this out because he has deep faith in Obama and he knows that he would never abandon the Earth. Next. Next. Dave, Obama, and the ultimate self. This is the culmination of everything we have been talking about. Next. Dave's encounter with Obama. It was the crucial moment. It was completely essential for his ultimate self. Because at this point of the story, Dave is older. He has kind of slowed down, but his facade of irony, it has completely like kind of eroded because it kind of there isn't much of a point anymore to it, and he has become like this very sincerely mythical figure for Dave, and it was and deeply symbolic of hope. Hope. Yes. Encountering Obama is nothing short of a spiritual experience for Dave. It burns away at his facade. He keeps thinking like he can't cry in front of Obama. He's happy that his glasses hide his expression. But throughout the whole encounter, it's clear that Obama knows. He knows how Dave feels, and he accepts it, and that is very important because it burns away at that facade, and he lives in completely uninhibited to fight for his vision, and he becomes something that cannot be reduced to any specific label. He becomes something beyond like man, woman, gay, straight, any identity you could think of. He becomes something way more essential that it embodies all of his potential. Dave, at his core, is a visionary. He's a revolutionary spirit, and he wants something to fight for. But it's very troubling that he picks Obama because Obama is, at the end of the day, a neoliberalist leader of the capitalist state. He's in by no means a good person, and that is troubling. I think it shows kind of the unconscious biases of Dave and how an idea becomes abstracted and becomes unspoken and inescapable, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's it. That's my section.
Okay, next.
Applause, applause.
You did great. Okay, everybody, it's time for Dirk Bama, and it's linked to Dave. It's me, the #1 Dirk Bama shipper, bringing you this section. It's interesting to note how the romantic subtext between Obama and Dirk, within the epilogues, Obama representing Dave's idealized version that never lived to truly be president, and considering Dave's complicated relationship with his bro, we can ultimately draw one common link: Dave's childhood, the good and the bad. Anyways, can you click? Dirk Bauman for the uninitiated, and can you click again? Thank you. Obama was never president in the B1 timeline. Dave even mentioned, Fluky mentioned this earlier with how Dave mentions how he doesn't see B2 Obama as canon. So to Dave, Obama is a fictionalized version of himself, someone who never had the time or opportunity to disappoint Dave and ruin his view of his favorite president. Dave needs this part of his childhood, which was overall shitty, to stay pure. It's ultimately linked back to nostalgia and could be a coping mechanism in a sense. Anyways, continue. Oh, goodbye. So, Obama and Dave, father and son. Obama is an ideal for Dave, a shining beacon of hope, quite literally a hero of one. During Obama's brief appearance, he is there to guide Dave towards a greater sense of purpose, sending him off to become his ultimate self. Also, throughout chapter 39, Dave becomes increasingly more emotional, something his stoic bro would disapprove of, as evident through Dirk's overall mindset. But Obama never chastises him for it. From a writing standpoint, perhaps that's why Dirk and Obama dated, so Obama could have a further link to Dave and become the father he never had in his darkest hour. Okay, next. Oh, that's me. Anyways, sorry again. So now we're going to talk about Dirk. So, Dirk does in fact have a type. With Dirk Mama being a thing, there is now a bigger data pool for Dirk's dating preferences. The only thing Obama and Jake have in common is being heroes of hope, which is quite an interesting link. Hope players, sans Aridin and Cronus, being destroyer classes, they ghost their opposite. And Gamzee pre-Murderstuck, reference back to the destroyer classes ghosting their opposite, have one thing in common, likely due to their class spec, seeing the best in people. Taking that into account, and Dirk's whole thing of hating himself sheds a fascinating new light on his character. The thesis statement for this being, Dirk being unable to see the best of himself, he seeks out partners who will do that for him. Anyways, that is my section. A little bow as I head out.
Applause, applause.
Pause.
Pause.
You going?
We keep
Okay.
going.
Yes, there is more.
Yes, there's
So, this is the slide where we explain Obama's class spec. Welcome to the slide where we explain Obama's class spec. We will now explain Obama's class spec and why it is that way. If you may please hit next. So we forgot to do this slide, so we just asked the class specting channel, and we know they're always right. And this one guy, Laminated Denim, said he's an heir. So therefore, Obama's an heir. And if you thought otherwise, yeah, you're wrong. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to say on the matter, really. You can just hit next one more time. Clearly, there's some confusion on our phrasing of calling him a muse. I personally, speaker here, CZ, I personally thought he would have been a sylph or a maid, but the gendered class rule works against this theory, as of Callie's interpretation of the theory that some classes are gender locked. This does bring the idea of a theory of trans Bama, but that's for later down the line. We will be talking about that later. If we could hit next, please. Now, before we go any further, I do need to bring up a preface of we have a scary sponsor for this segment, and it is Aridin. I am being forced to read this segment, and here we go. I still think his character is an arc for an allegory for the Obama presidency. I mean, think about it. The supposed Prince of Hope knocks out Solix, aka bipartisanship, and betrays Feferi, aka social welfare programs, and Kanaya, aka the LGBTQ community, in order to suck up for the fascist murderous beast Bec Noir, aka the GDP, who feels irrational loyalty to Jade, aka Regan, a figure whom Noir does not truly know or understand, and whose actions have often directly contradicted his stated ideals and goals. Aridin then goes to confront Gamzee, aka the increasingly dispossessed and disillusioned middle class, and Vriska, aka Vriska, with the intention of eliminating them as well. While his past self has made futile attempts at flirting with Carcat, aka true leftism, it just makes too much sense. Secret, because I don't want to imply that Andrew Hussey wants queer voters to engage in the democratic process with their chainsaws in this coming election. Now that the sponsored segment is over, we can please move on and pass Aridin. Now, I bring up this temporary stasis into, is Obama real? Now, this is our transition into many theories about what Obama could be and whether or not he's actually real. Now, we're going to pass this over to Soma, I believe, and they will be taking this on. So, Soma, if you will.
Hello, hello. Next slide. Click one more time. Okay, again. Awesome sauce. All right. This is the Obama hallucination theory. Yay. So, first of all, there is a case to be made that Obama was never real in the first place, as in, like, tangibly real in candy. Knowing that Dirk is someone who prepares very thoroughly for everything to go wrong, it could potentially make sense that he made Dave bot as well as Rosebot before offing himself. And Obama being a hologram justifies to the audience and Dave's mind why he's not corporeal. It's like a cop-out kind of explanation, like maybe Dave is seeing all this in his mind, and the hologram is the reason why you can't physically touch Obama. And it also explains why Obama adheres to some of Dave's headcanons. One more click. Right. So, because this comes out of nowhere and yet is so vitally important to the story, like vitally important, we are screaming this at your face. The implications of this on the timeline and world building are honestly really, really terrible. But of course, this is just a theory. One more click. An Obama theory. Okay, next slide. One click. Okay, this is an alternate theory. Kind of the head side of the coin of compared to the tail side of the other slide that we just did. Not all of Dave's headcanons were correct. I told you about those president's dog. I told you. So, in the difference between Obama as a character and Obama as a man, we know that his presidency was not perfect. He was not. As much as the American people really like him, he still was honestly, in a lot of ways, just as evil as other presidents. So the truth of the matter is that Dave's headcanons about him were wrong. But why is Obama a hologram? It's obviously because of Dirk. Okay, one more click. I have much evidence. Just kidding, it's actually not a lot. But some similar syntax here. I'm sure you've already figured this out, but you already knew that, right? Okay, one more click. Here's where Obama explains why he's a hologram. Says he capture logged a ghost imprint of his own brain, and we have one specific other character who has definitely already done that to disastrous results. But apparently, it's possible he did this again before he killed himself in Candy. Anyway, one more click. And one more click. Cool, yeah. And then I think this is the last one for the slide. One more click. And yeah, I was actually Obama the whole time. The entire thing was actually just a ruse to trick Dave into alt-selfing by impersonating the one person I knew he would go to hell and back. Sure, I died fairly early on in Candy, but I had a lot of irons on the fire before I lost connection to my ultimate self in both timelines. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, that's the end of my segment.
Now, we come to combat, philosophy, life, and love. These are the four main key aspects of Dirk that are basically implanted into everyone else he's interacted with. Gamzee mentions it, that he was supposed to teach it to Tavros. Jake mentions it after they had a strange connection with each other. Not strange, what am I saying? It was practically mind manipulation. And also, Obama himself has mentioned that a certain man has taught him these four things of combat, philosophy, life, and love. Now, in the following few segments, I will be talking about these many possible theories, leading with Transbama and how Dirk's influence, please click for one more time, how Dirk's influence might have instated in the fact that maybe there is more in play at the moment, and how next slide, please.
Your mic cut out.
Now for the conclusion. Someone else didn't write the conclusion, so I guess I gotta make this up on the spot. Combat.
No, we did.
Philosophy.
We did.
Oh, we did? Oh, next slide.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We
there's
did.
literally a next slide.
Okay, epic conclusion, gang. We got this.
Okay.
Do not look
No.
up Obama.
All
There
right.
you go.
Okay. All right. No.
Yeah.
We're not. Why did you? What the hell? All right.
We're done. That's it.
Great work,
Congratulations, guys.
everyone.
Oh, the organization slide.
Good work. Thank you. What? Why? Why did you all do this? Here's the other one.
It's glorious, is it not?
This is art.
It is true cinema, in fact.
Shaking my head
Absolute
at both
This
of you.
wasn't
presentation.
just a PowerPoint presentation.
You
It
know.
was a collaborative
This was
effort.
art.
It was a surrealist work of art. It was absurdism
It was me.
as
That's
well.
true.
It was me shilling Dirk Bama.
Exactly.
Dirk Bama is a very
Also,
valid
yes,
interpretation
there
of
is
everything that
AO3
happened.
fix for them.
And I just searched. Yes, you do
How
get
did you
AI
break it up?
generated Obama feed pics. Don't look it up.
Okay. Don't. All right.
I am so happy we had this
All right. All of you get
opportunity
off
to
stage
share our
now. You're
wisdom.
done. You're out of here.
Okay,
Thanks
bye.
for
I
your
love you, I
time.
love you.
Get
Bye,
out of here.
everyone.
I love you.
Get out of here. And you. All right. Turn his fucking straight off. All right. Well, that's the presentations. Mr. President, how did you enjoy them? Mr. President is gone. It's all on me now. Congratulations for everybody who presented. Yeah, I guess the president died of dehydration during this last one. So that's very sad. I guess it's all on me, and I guess well, we do have a vice president who I guess would, in the case of the death of the president, ascend to the presidency role. Whatever, we can't think about any of this because it's time to play some Jackbox.
I did not realize. I didn't realize I was muted. My bad.
Okay, awesome. Well, Mr. President, how did you enjoy the presentations?
Pretty beautiful. You know what? I was grading them, and then at a certain point, I was like, well, it feels weird to grade these seriously. So I'm going to give.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the Obama team points for visual interest and intrigue. It was truly horrible to witness. I loved every second of it. I will give the meat team points for just sheer quantity of information deposited into like my head. Also, I feel like this is the most anyone's talked about Obama in quite some time ever.
That's true. So going forward to Jackbox, my question for you, Mr. President, is this mods and horse mods only, or are we letting anyone in?
It's a pretty normal crowd. I would say let's try one with give it to the horse mods first, but we could let the code out into the group, and if everyone behaves, we could keep doing that until somebody ruins it for everyone.
Okay. So Lux said that she owns all of the games. So Lux, I'm bringing you back up here.
Oh my god! Hello.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I can pull up anyone. Just tell me which one.
I'm gonna be so honest. I haven't played a Jackbox